We begin with the latest on the coronavirus outbreak. As of this morning, the total number of deaths in China surpassed the 1,500 mark, with the number of confirmed infections now exceeding 66,000. China's National Health Commission said that as of midnight Friday, nearly 140 additional deaths have been reported from Hubei province, the epicenter of the outbreak, most of them from Wuhan. Meanwhile, over in Japan, where a cruise ship has been quarantined since arriving in Yokohama on February 3rd, at least 218 people have tested positive for the virus, among some 3,500 passengers and crew who were on board. The latest figure brings the total number of infected people in Japan to 259, the highest number next to China.
Saudi-UAE-led coalition confirming one of its warplanes has gone down in Al-Jaf governorate in the northeast of Yemen. Houthi rebels say its forces shot down that Royal Saudi Air Force plane, and the Houthi media also talking about 30 civilians killed in coalition airstrikes in a district in the same region. We'll talk to Hassan al-Bukhaiti, a specialist in Yemen and Houthi affairs, joining us from Sana'a. Can you tell us more about that, first of all? This talk of 30 civilians killed in coalition airstrikes. Was that a retaliation airstrike?
Yes, it seems to be that was a retaliation airstrike because just yesterday, after the Yemeni armed force here in Sana'a shut down the Saudi Tornado fighter jet, there was 8 airstrike on the wreckage of that fighter jet. I think they were trying to wipe any evidence, but in the early hours of the morning, they have targeted several homes.
This is the moment another Syrian military helicopter shot down in Aleppo province. None of its crew survived. They were taking part in a military operation to recapture opposition-held areas on the outskirts of Aleppo city. It's the second helicopter downed by rebels in the same area this week. Fierce fighting continues in neighboring Idlib province. It's a critical time for the rebels, who are constantly retreating after losing ground. Idlib is their last stronghold. If they are defeated here, the war will be over.
Some news on President Trump's border wall. The Pentagon plans to shift $3.8 billion in military funding to build the wall.
Lindsay, I'm in Hidalgo, a southern border town here in Texas. Now, the latest news on the Pentagon's $3.8 billion transfer of funds to construct the border wall comes from the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, today making comments defending the legality of the Trump administration's request. That was at an international security conference in Munich. Now, those funds would specifically contribute to adding 177 miles of boundary. That created quick backlash from top Democrats in Washington. You have House Speaker Nancy Pelosi issuing a joint statement with Senator Chuck Schumer, affirming Congress's authority as the sole authority to appropriate funds.
A patrol by Congolese soldiers and UN peacekeepers in the Beni region, and no one to be seen in several villages. People say they are facing unprecedented attacks by the allied democratic forces. The ADF originated in western Uganda in the 1990s to fight for the creation of an Islamic state. Their rebellion was crushed by Ugandan forces. ADF fighters then crossed the border into the neighboring DRC, where they've remained for nearly 20 years. Human rights campaigners in Beni say more than 400 Congolese have been killed in the last 1 month alone. Hundreds have fled their homes. Security forces have increased patrols in remote areas where the attacks have been happening. 64 people were killed in this village of Mamove last week.
You're not no bad person.
The edited body camera footage shows officers escorting a 6-year-old girl out of school and to a nearby mental health facility where she would be committed for 2 days.
You gonna be good?
The school says they were following standard protocol after staff said she was destroying school property, attacking staff, and out of control. The officers transporting little Nadia, who was diagnosed with ADHD and a mood disorder, noting her good behavior. Nadia's mother and her attorney shocked a contracted social worker hired by the school district used the Baker Act to have a 6-year-old committed at a mental health facility where they claim she was given antipsychotic medication.
Good evening. An emergency is unfolding south of Toowoomba where hundreds of properties are under threat of being swallowed by floodwaters. A dam is crumbling and could release 440 megalitres of fast-moving water. It means evacuated residents won't be allowed home tonight.
A cascading waterfall in a Talgai paddock, megalitres of water gushing out of this giant hole in the side of an irrigation dam. Crumbling by the hour, the entire dam wall threatening to collapse, releasing a wave of water that could inundate 250 homes. Residents evacuating in the dead of night.
No one knew what the situation was, and so we erred on the side of caution and put out an emergency alert to the residents downstream of that dam.
No dignity, even in death. This grave site does not bear the image of a final resting place. And that's because the Sunland Cemetery is slowly turning into an illegal dumping site. Several graves are now covered by refuse and others vandalized. Residents are fuming, saying their loved ones are not given the respect and dignity they deserve. Not only is it an eyesore, it is also seen as an insult to the ancestral spirits. The municipality says it is addressing the issue, but failed to commit to any time frames.
When you think about companies that are environmentally friendly, you likely don't think of airlines, but Delta is trying to change that. The airline says it will commit $1 billion over the next decade to cut down on carbon emissions. Delta says this is all part of its goal to become the first carbon neutral airline in the world.
Well, it's going to be a difficult path for Delta Airlines, $100 million a year for the next 10 years to try and become carbon neutral. Now, airlines account for about 2% of the carbon that's emitted into the atmosphere, and we don't see any electric planes coming, so it's going to be difficult to reach this just through the airline operations itself, because they burn a lot of jet fuel. About 90% of their carbon footprint is what they burn in their jets.